Hello there, David Thornburg, President and CEO of the Committee of 70, Philadelphia's longstanding civic leadership organization that advocates for better government and more informed and engaged voters. We have a primary election coming up on May 21st, if you haven't noticed. And the way we look at the process of running for election, it's kind of like a job interview. So in that spirit, we've been running a series of interviews with council at large candidates today. This is number 15. And we've had a great series of conversations to try to understand where various candidates are coming from, their backgrounds, their experience, their vision, their plan, and ultimately what they would hope to accomplish in city council. So I'm pleased to welcome Fernando Trevino.
Thank you for having me. Hi, guys.
To join us. He's a Democratic council at large candidate, lives in Bella Vista. He is a political consultant. We'll learn a little bit more about that. A native of Mexico who went to law school there, and he's been in Philly for about 20 years. Has been very involved as an advocate for immigrant affairs here in Philadelphia, and was very involved in launching the city's Office of Immigrant Affairs. So I hope I did justice to your background.
You did, thank you.
Okay, good.
One correction, I live in Passion Square. You know, we are very territorial about that.
Actually, my daughter used to live on Passyunk Avenue, just a block from Passyunk Square.
Okay, so. Perfect. I'm on 13 and Dickinson, so
right.
You know, we're kind of territorial down there.
No, I quite understand. It's not only a city of neighborhoods, it's a city of micro neighborhoods.
Yes, sir.
But, okay. So here's the job interview. First question that you ask of a potential candidate is, why do you want this job? Why are you running?
Look, the basics is that during my whole career, I have seen the human cost of health policies. In Mexico, I saw the human cost of really bad economic policies that push immigrants to come to this country. At the border, I saw firsthand the human cost of failed immigration policies. My first job in the Consulate of Mexico in Eagle Pass was actually go to the river and to the desert to recognize the bodies of immigrants who actually died trying to come to this country.
Oh.
I will be on call. Every time that the Border Patrol will find the body of an immigrant, they will call me. I will go down there, take pictures, help identify the body, and then help the family in Mexico recover that body. So the ultimate human price that immigrants paid, I was right there. And this is almost 20 years ago. And in Philadelphia, I had the opportunity to lead the criminal division of the Mexican consulate in Philadelphia. And my job was to make sure that the rights of immigrants, the constitutional rights of immigrants, would be respected when they were facing the criminal justice system. I don't have to tell you how crazy our criminal justice system is. Now imagine being a minority. Now imagine being undocumented, and imagine if you don't speak the language. Mm-hmm. So for 7 years, that was my job. And for 7 years, I saw that human cost. And to be honest, I do believe that it is time to bring the city back to basics. Like you were mentioning, I was born and raised in Mexico. I came to the US almost 20 years ago, 18 years in Philly, and Philly became home in a heartbeat. I met my wife here, my kids were born here, and I became a US citizen working for President Obama's campaign here in Philadelphia. So when you had thousands of people leaving Philadelphia 15, 18 years ago, my wife and I decided to stay, to invest in this city and to make mm-hmm. Philadelphia home. And for me, the city is moving in the right direction, but we're forgetting about the basic stuff. We're forgetting mm-hmm. about governing. And I have never been a candidate in my life, always working behind the scenes. But, you know, it was time to step up. It was time to remind Philadelphia that we need to go back to basics, that we need to make sure that we're, you know, fixing our streets, cleaning our neighborhoods, and making sure that we're providing, you know, jobs and opportunity for people living in poverty.
Right. So you've given us a pretty good picture of some of your background. I think your passions and your interests and your commitment comes through. Let's fast forward, and a number of things break your way. You're a member of City Council. You know, City Council deals in legislation.
Yes.
There's 17 people. You need 9 votes or 12 votes if you want to make it veto proof. So, you know, the job in council is to translate ideas and vision and commitment and interest in the legislation. So thinking along those lines, what kinds of more tangible, concrete proposals have you thought about? Would you support? Would you never support?
Well, there are a couple of ideas. First, it doesn't matter what kind of issue we're talking about. For me, it's about making sure that we are having tangible results, short-term solutions to those problems. It is very important to think about the comprehensive solutions, about the long-term engagement. But again, we are forgetting about governing in a daily basis. So on education, for example, I'm all about keep pushing Harrisburg to have a fair funding formula. I'm all about keep pushing city council and the mayor to make sure that we have more funding for our schools. But at the same time, right now we have teachers that don't have access to parking lot. Teachers have to leave the classroom every 2 hours to move their cars or get a parking ticket. And we're not taking care of that, right? We have students leaving our public schools because they don't have a safe environment to go into school. My daughter was bullied for 4 months last year, 4 months in a public school. And it took me a lot of steps in order to get that problem done. So while we're talking about long-term issues, we shouldn't forget about the short-term solution. So that would be my approach.
Yeah.
Specifically about the issues, as I was mentioning to you before we went live, I do believe that we need urgent reform in good government. I do believe that we need to have term limits. I do believe that we need to find a way to have public finance campaigns in order to have an even field. And to be honest, and I know that this is a little bit more, a long term, but we need to find a way to end councilmatic prerogative.
Those last two, I mean, we did talk before we went live, and I think we have a lot of similar thinking around some of those issues. Councilmanic prerogative in particular, a lot of folks, have learned, have become familiar with the term, learned how to pronounce it and spell it, which is kind of a miracle. But the hardest part is, well, what do we do about it? And it's the balance between what's a legitimate role of a council person representing people in a district, and what's an excessive role that leads to corruption and unfair treatment of particular interests. So, do you have any particular thoughts on what we do about councilmanic prerogative?
Yeah, look, the issue is that as a concept, I think that it's a good idea, right? We need to make sure that council members representing each district have a saying on how the public property should be, deal with, who would be able to develop that. But let's be honest, that system has been abused. When you have when more than 80% of public property is controlled by 3 council members, it is a problem. When you have clear evidence where that kind of right or that kind of influence has been abused, we do have a problem. So we need to find a way that if we want to keep councilmatic prerogative, that we actually go back to the ideal, to the concept of the idea, and make sure that that's been respected. However, it hasn't. So I rather end councilmatic prerogative, make sure that all of the public property is transferred to the land bank, and give much more power and influence and a bigger budget to the land bank, and make sure that they are disposing of those public properties with the feedback from community leaders and those communities. That was supposed to be the role of council members by district, and unfortunately it's not happening.
I know when we looked into this, and you may have come to the same conclusion, we did create this land bank a few years ago with a lot of hard work. But what seems to be true about this land bank is there are not many deposits, and therefore not many withdrawals.
It's optional.
Yeah.
And
so
I'm sorry,
it's kind of like having an actual bank that has no money in it.
Yes. Because you are asking, people to, hey, it's up to you if you want to use it or not, and that's not supposed to be the case.
Or you can keep it stuffed in your mattress.
Exactly.
I guess. Let me just ask a different kind of a question, which is, once you get elected to council, there's no particular job description that says here's the type of council person you could be, or here's how you could spend your time. Some people are more interested in kind of policy things. There's constituent services. Some folks spend more time sort of working the politics of the body. Just based on your career to date, can you forecast a particular style or a particular approach or a particular piece of the job description that you would be effective in?
To be honest, it's going to be a mix of all of the above. I have the experience to do politics. I have the experience in constituency services. I have the experience on legislation. So I do believe that my role in city council is going to have one main priority, and this is to improve the quality of life of Philadelphians. We need to fix our streets. We need to clean our neighborhoods. With that as a first priority, I do believe that I have the experience, developing the partnerships in city council that we need to develop in order to get stuff done, developing the partnerships outside of city council with community groups and advocates to get done the stuff that we need to get done. And at the same time, to advocate in Harrisburg and across the state to make sure that we're changing perception of Philadelphia and we are, stressing the need that Philadelphia has. I was the director of constituency outreach for President Obama's campaign in 2012. And then I had the same role for Josh Shapiro's campaign in the primary, and a very similar role for a group called For Our Future also in 2016. So I do have experience working with elected officials around Pennsylvania. My professional and personal network goes beyond Philadelphia, and I do believe that that's an important role, that we can use the bully pulpit of city council to advocate for issues that we cannot resolve with legislation, but at the same time sit down and have the openness of negotiate with every sector in city council to get stuff done, because at the end we are there to serve the people of Philadelphia, not to advance our careers.
Yeah, we spend a fair amount of time in Harrisburg talking to folks from both parties. I think it's probably fair to say, and this has been true for a long time, that a lot of folks in Harrisburg who are not from Philadelphia look at Philadelphia sometimes, I think, as Sodom and Gomorrah by the Delaware.
Yeah.
They look at the political culture, the way the money flows, maybe the egregious, overreach of examples of councilmanic prerogative. There's sort of a sense of. Now, we remind people that as compared to Harrisburg, that Philadelphia has actually pretty tough ethics laws and a strong board of ethics. We instituted campaign finance limits, which have eluded the state of Pennsylvania so far, that by and large, from the administration side and in the last two administrations, I think both of them have evidenced a commitment to integrity. Having said that, there's lots of room to improve.
Yeah.
So we look at things like the endorsement process here in Philadelphia, which seems to be pretty closed and pretty insular, seems to repel more than it attracts. We look at the way council, if you were elected, one of the jobs of council would be to approve council district maps in 2021, which we've been doing a lot of work on gerrymandering and redistricting.
Yeah.
Huge issue. We look at transparency in the body of city council, and there's a lot of stuff that happens there in the cover of darkness. So I apologize for all that wind up, but what's the first couple of moves if you were elected, if you think we ought to make to try to change that perception and that reality?
I think that it's all about transparency, both in city council and in the mayor's office and in the administration. When you have, a process to assess, value to properties in order to determine the tax rates that nobody knows how it works, that is a problem. When you have a process in city council where you can just stop legislation without hearings, without giving the public the opportunity to provide feedback sometimes, I think that that's a problem. So we need to start fixing our home before going out there and advocate for Philly across the state. But I do believe that everything comes to transparency. We need to improve transparency in the decision process in the mayor's office. We need to improve transparency on how our tax system works. And again, we need to improve transparency on sometimes how city council works internally. And I do believe that that's a key for Philly to move forward.
Yeah. Well, and picking up on the Harrisburg connection, we have noted that there would be some irony and some advantage if Philadelphia could sort of lead the way on some of these things and basically turn the tables on folks in Harrisburg who, benefit from the narrative that says,
I'm all about leading by example. Again, the reason that I'm running is because I was looking forward to recruit, a candidate that would talk about the issues that I care, that would have the same approach that I want to bring to city council. And after seeing the field, and we have great people running, don't take me wrong, but I thought that the leading by example was the right thing to do. And I have never run for office in my life, so
Right.
this is the first time. And I just got tired of waiting for other people to do what I
Yeah.
believe the city should do. So yeah.
We just have another minute, so
Mhm.
quick question for you. Is there a measure, a policy proposal that you would never support no matter what if it came through the council process?
It's personal, but I would never support going back to the times where the city would cooperate 100% with immigration.
Mhm.
I'm very proud about the fact that I led internally with the city. I led the process to turn Philadelphia into a sanctuary city. If any candidate of any other person tells you that only one person had can take credit for that, that's a lie. It was an amazing coalition inside and outside of government, and I'm very proud that I helped the mayor's office to lead that process. And that, so I would never go back to cooperate with immigration the way that we used to do years ago.
Well, remind me of that line that success has a million parents and failure is an orphan.
Of course.
Thanks so much for being with us, Fernando.
Thank you for your time.
Best of luck to you. As we've given everybody the best of luck. This is
Thank
a
you.
tough business, and hope you find it, win, lose, or draw, a valuable one. But
it is. Thank you.
we do have an election coming up, primary election May 21st. I hope this has been helpful for you to get to know this candidate for council at large. If you want to dig in further on candidates, not just council, but other candidates here in Philadelphia, or if you're in the suburbs, also in the suburbs, go to our world-class voter guide at 70.org on the web. And if you want to make it even more accessible, download our We Vote app to your phone, where you can have in the palm of your hand pretty much everything you need to be an informed and engaged super voter on election day. Make a plan to vote. Check it twice. Remind your friends, your colleagues, your neighbors, your family, and we'll see you at the polls.
Thank you.